Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to The Element Podcast.
It's got me looking for a dance floor. Grab a daddy in your bonfire Friday day. I come in, eat, break it, crush, make it, sugar, shake it, after legging, everything is going my way. I got a long-legged girlfriend, hopping out the shotgun, nothing like a small town, babe. She's the angel on my shoulder, with the devil's on the other, keep stealing my heart away. It's kind of hard being 16 on a Friday night after a football game. I gotta get all up in something, cause something's all up inside of me.
What's happening on my woods, people? And it's a beautiful day today. Started out crispy fried. Casey, we've been in this car for a long time together the last few days, man. What do you think about it all? Are you tired of driving? You need me to drive?
No, I don't need you to drive. I feel pretty good. The last couple of days I haven't felt like a big nasty slob, but today I kind of feel that way because we haven't really done a whole lot, and I ate Taco Bell for lunch, and it was so good. And so we made a new word. I think it was a slocco, which is a sloppy taco.
That's right.
I had a big sloppy taco that was just like falling apart. It was good at the time, but now I kind of regret eating it.
Yeah.
That's okay though.
I could feel regret before we stopped in there, so I went ahead and got three Georgia Gold strips from KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel pretty good about that decision.
Got that little country diet going.
It's a little bit healthy, just barely.
Yeah.
Well, we're driving, like we said, on the way home, coming back from a little shed hunting trip up in Kansas,
which is really. It was a shed hunting trip. Don't get me wrong. We hunted some sheds, but we really take it more as an opportunity to do some phone calling and try to gain permissions on properties, which went probably, I'd say like a 6 out of 10 on the Richter scale, don't you think?
Yeah, easy, man. I mean, it was, I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. And you're definitely right. Like, I did more searching for people and people's names than I did any kind of shit.
We had a little role reversal going on because this is my first time to actually drive my vehicle and be the driver up here. So you did a lot more of the on the phone navigating and especially finding names and phone numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was kind of more me driving around looking at stuff and you looking up stuff.
Yeah, and it was not fun. I'll tell you, oh my gosh, I just did not. I got to the point, at first it's fun because there's that anticipation, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got into a funk in day 2, which was yesterday, where we were just I couldn't even find phone numbers, hardly. Yeah. And we were just looking up all these people, and they're just apparently people that are, have been dead for 10 years or whatever.
I'm sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed.
It's no, I dialed it. Okay, it's completed. Can you just connect me? It just got to the point where it's just man, I've literally looked up 60 names and have not found maybe but 1 or 2 phone numbers, and you called both of them, and one of them rang until till a messaging system, and one of them did the little Verizon secure call can now be connected.
Yesterday was a number that we've tried a couple times because it's a place we'd really like to get on. And then finally we got an answer.
Oh my gosh.
And I lost service as soon as the lady said hello. And then my phone cut out. No service.
Yeah.
Never talked to her. Called her back. She didn't answer.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
It's because you didn't say you were from the Element.
Is that what it was?
If you just said that,
hey,
she'd be
it's
like,
Casey from the Element.
She would have known, like celebrity status, right?
Said, you're a skateboarder?
That's right. Yeah. So that was it was more of a connect with people network trip where the first afternoon I thought this is going to be the greatest shed trip of all time because we walked a property that we hunted the first afternoon that we hunted last year as a permission property, and dude, we were like, we find how many we found? I found 2 there. You found a deadhead right off the bat, 100 yards in. Found like a solid deadhead from a deer that we think we have on film.
Yeah, this deer actually is from, I guess it's probably day 5 of rutcation. Is that right? Day 5 or 6 of rutcation. I can't remember on YouTube.
Check that.
And it's whenever I walked up to him on the ground, I really couldn't believe how big he was because we pretty much gave him a soft pass. He was at like 65 yards or something, and we didn't attempt to get him closer. And he was rutting like I think we could have got him closer.
Yeah,
with
he was
some grunts
searching
or something.
big time.
He was into it. But kind of a cool story because we watched him for a while. He's a big 7-point, and he was like weaving in and out of barns and stuff.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. And then
day 6 rutcation.
Day 6 of rutcation.
Yeah,
and then he's dead suddenly. I don't know. And that was kind of really a motif, but we'll get into that more later. But that was it's a kind of a bittersweet find. I guess all deadheads are. Maybe not as much when you're not managing the property. If like this was a place that like we had full control over and you lost a really good 3-year-old up and comer like that, it would really hurt, which still isn't great, but it's just still a neat find, something to carry home, especially, luckily he wasn't stinky. He pretty much was just all bone and
looked like he'd been dead since the rut.
So, and there's so many coyotes that you can't tell how they died, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to say something, you say, well, coyotes ate him because they eat it all, like everything except the spinal column, and they chew on the head. But, there's no way of knowing if he got shot, got hit by a car or something, or...
They'll eat grunt calls. Coyotes will.
Yeah, coyotes will eat grunt calls. We found that out later, too.
Find that out.
But, I mean, he's broken up a little bit more, I think, from when we saw him, right? So... It kind of makes you wonder if he didn't die in a fight or something.
Yeah, he is busted up. Mm-hmm. He had weird. I don't know if any of you've ever seen this. If you do, send us a picture. Or if you have, send us a picture. But he had these weird it looked like somebody just taken a knife blade and carved out like a 1/4 inch off of his main beam on top. The only thing I could come up with is like that he went up against a T-post or something and just like shredded on his. Worked it, long enough that he just like shredded completely, like into the marrow of the antler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He like wore it through that outside coating that we recognize as antler, and it was like you could see the spongy looking stuff on the inside.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So that was like our first right off the bat. We found that, and then we moved through that little area and off to some kind of taller grass and found several more. Which the next thing you found was actually a pretty interesting find.
So I was real streaky on this trip. Like I had a couple really good finds there, and the next thing, and we're going to talk about this for a little bit because it's really interesting, is that we found not a shed, but a broke off whole antler, broke off like at the brow tine.
Yep.
And as soon as I picked it up, I said, "This is nameless." And not really thinking it for sure, but I was like, man, that looks a lot like him.
Yeah.
I kind of tend to say things before I really think them through. And this time it worked because you compared them. You compared the picture. You're going to go home and compare the mount, but 95% sure it's him.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the year before.
Which would have been 16. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like, as soon as you said it, I was like, you turned it sideways and I was like, you know what? There's almost no doubt that's him. It's just... the exact same thing, and we're looking like we're probably what, a half mile from where he was shot,
Yeah, something like that.
maybe a little more.
Yeah.
So like, you know, we're thinking this is an easy, you know, easily his home range, and I don't know. I was just like, I didn't want to take your like biggest shed of the trip, you know, and even though it wasn't a shed, but like I didn't want to take the biggest shed, but like you were like, man, I'm gonna have to give you this thing.
Yeah. Oh, I was kind of like jokingly ticked about it because it was a big shed, but like I'm happy to give it like that. And this is, I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but like since you killed that deer, I feel like that you should have that because it's a big part of the history to that buck, right? Even though it's like reverse history, which is kind of a neat, like it's kind of its own deal, right? Like it's not something that. It's not something that actually means anything to you tactically. You're not going to kill more deer because of that kind of history, but like it enriches the story.
Yeah. People talk about the history all the time, man, and it's cool. Definitely build history with a buck. I've built a lot of history on a public track in Texas with a buck, but
you've yet to see on the hoof, but it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's kind of interesting to think about it in a reverse sense, where you're like putting together the pieces of this deer's life after you've already shot it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is very interesting, though. Anyway, so we kind of, you know, put that in the pack, went and found it. And you think you were streaky. I had one streak. I like found 2 sheds
Dude,
the whole trip.
On the trail to get on there for a second.
I was,
It was
man.
a good spot.
Yeah, it was good. I found 2 sheds, and they were probably like 100 yards apart. And then, other than that, I walked miles and miles and miles and didn't find.
Well, those were only 2 sheds you found?
Yep.
Man, yeah, that was streaky.
So you ended up finding some deadheads that kind of made the trip.
I did.
though.
Oh, well, that day I found a shed that later we had that deer on camera. Little baby guy, but he had an identifiable characteristic, and he's on camera.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Oh, that's another neat part about that first day is that Tyler and I had a discrepancy on if we had in fact left a camera on this property or not. He didn't think we had, and I was almost certain that we did. So
I left it too, and I didn't even remember.
Yeah, you went and checked it the last time, didn't even remember you had it. And in fact, it was there, and it took pictures all through winter.
It took it took pictures of us coming up.
Yeah.
The other day, so like it took all the way through.
That's kind of a testament to those lithium batteries and actually working, because there were some cold pictures on that camera.
Yeah, all the cold weather that everybody's been talking about through the Midwest, like it took through all that, man.
Yeah, and there was a deer Cephas festival up in there.
Dude, it was insane. We had like 2,000 pictures, and we had hung it over a pretty big scrape, and there were deer checking it 3 days ago. Deer checking the scrape, you know. No
bucks
antlers.
that are shed that are still just licking the licking branch. Kind of cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Identified a couple deer that we were really excited to see next year.
And several that are going to be shooters.
Yeah, there's one that's on there. I mean, didn't we say he's like a pushing 150 mark, 10 point?
Yeah,
which that's big for us,
he's
man.
a 150 10, I think. I mean, so.
And it might be a buck that, like, I had a little bit of history where we did, I guess, that last day 6 that we didn't get on camera, I don't think, on film, but
just
still.
I don't know, he's just really pretty, you know, like he's just like he's not like Nameless, where like he's got everything but he doesn't have any of it like extremely long, you know what I mean, or extremely, he doesn't have a ton of mass, but he's got good mass. He doesn't have a ton of tine length, but they're all really symmetrical, and they're all pretty long, you know what I mean. And
great brows.
He does have good brows. They're like 6 inches each, which for us, I mean, that's a big brow time for me. We may have talked about this, but when we talked to the guy up in Iowa a couple of years ago, and he started showing us all these pictures, you know, all those deer would have like a 7-inch brow tine at least, you know. Yeah. And I don't know, just genetically, I guess it's different here. They just don't have big brow tines all the time.
That's good genes to have, though, like just solid. You know, when you're looking for a, like, say, a collegiate athlete, you want someone who's just solid all the way around, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of how it is with deer. You just want something, well, they're all cool, but like to just have a good solid genetic pool is nice.
Yep.
And the one thing that we have noticed a lot about deer in that area is it seems to be that they break off like half their rack.
Yeah.
Like they have like these weak points somewhere around their pedicle and brow tine. I don't know if it's because they have a lot of mass out there further and they don't have as much at the base, or or what it is.
We've
Something
always
smells funky right now. I don't know what this is.
It's a feedlot mixed with some kind of like gas. I don't know what that is. Some kind of like CO2.
I always
or
hate smelling weird smells going down the road because then you're like, is this my car?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have like a fairly new vehicle, so it's
Yeah.
it's still, but you just never know, man. It's kind of scary. But,
I don't even know where I was at really with that.
talking about the broke off.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
we've always noticed that as a characteristic out there.
Even
And I think-
where y'all hunted before.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, it just is. So when we used to notice a lot of it was when there was just a lot more deer.
Yeah.
And since the drought and EHD outbreak and everything else that everybody had across the Midwest in 2012, 11 and 12, we have just a lot less bucks overall. And so like we used to notice it a lot, whereas we haven't seen it much lately. But then in this particular spot, our trail camera showed a ton of bucks this time. You know what I mean? So I kind of think that it's just like there was a lot of bucks in and out of that area this fall. You know what I mean? And I think they would just clash, and fight a lot. And
we had bucks sparring like in February on that camera, didn't we?
that was weird.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
there's some of them that are shed, and these two are just getting after it.
And I could see that happening back home a lot more. I see that as something that would happen back home more before it would happen in the Midwest, where you have a more strict rut or whatever.
Well, here's the deal: is we all think that like deer fight because of the rut, and they're fighting for dominance and females and this and that. Well, there's probably a lot of things that makes a deer mad, right? I mean, you see does paw at each other and get up on their hind legs and box or whatever.
Right.
Like I'm sure bucks at any point in time, they are like, I didn't like that you doing that.
And my tooth hurts today.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they probably have more reasons to fight than just the idea of does.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I'm pretty flat worn out right now, frankly. I battled extreme allergies that I haven't had in a long time, and just makes your head feel like it's kind of bloated the whole day. And then at night I wasn't able to sleep very well. But we got up next day, and it actually a cold front came through. It was kind of chilly and cloudy all day, and we searched and searched and searched, and we had little luck.
We did. We went over to a permission place that we had gotten permission on last fall.
Another one that was close to public.
Yeah, it was. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Oh, that is correct. Because we actually, okay.
It's a key point.
It is a key point because Tyler and I rattled in a buck from about 400 yards off. Big buck.
It's day 5 rutcation.
Day 5 rutcation, yes. And I ended up missing that deer because of a deflection, and he ran off and chased a doe, and we saw him again that afternoon, and
chased him,
tried to stalk him, and he started just running off. Wasn't spooked or anything, but anyways, a lot of history with this buck, and we've already walked so fast forward to the spring, we've walked probably a mile at this point in time, kind of almost wrapping up our walk to just walk back to the vehicle. And I yelled at Tyler, "Oh, huge deadhead, dude. Big buck. And I can't tell for sure what it is. And Tyler comes over, grabs the camera. I walk up to it, and lo and behold, it is that deer.
Yeah.
That exact buck. So 2 bucks that we know and have history with, I now have deadheads of. And this one, he was a little fresher, but he'd still been dead for quite a while. We're talking 2 months or so. So, and you don't know how it happened. It might have been, another hunter couldn't find him or what, but anyway, the coyotes really messed him up, and I don't know. I don't guess I have much else to say except it just was very sad to find that. And Tyler was real sad. We go through this thing. Tyler and I react differently to tragedy. I'm like, it's not a big deal, and then 3 or 4 days later, it's just wearing on me. Where Tyler, in the moment, is so sad. Which this actually happened when I missed that deer too.
I did.
And then in a couple days, Tyler would be like, it's all right, man, no big deal. So that's kind of how we felt when we found him. It's okay. Tyler's like, no, but that's the buck that you missed.
I was just sad for you, man. I feel like it would have been a buck that definitely used that property a lot, and that we could have had a chance to build some history with and come back next year, and he'd be he was a stud this year. Great deer. like, if you go watch the video, the Rutcation Day 5 video, he's like one of the biggest, most muscled up deer I've seen out there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just his blockhead. I remember when you picked him up yesterday as well. I was
Big
like,
skull.
man, that's a big skull.
Yeah,
you know?
and what was interesting is that his bottom jaw was there with the skull. I'm no expert at deer aging, but I kind of a little bit know some stuff, and he looked like a 4-year-old to me. The saddest thing for me is just that there's not going to be a big 5.5-year-old buck, at least one less out there running around next year. It's not so much that that's a deer that I know and had shot at. It's just the fact that buck isn't, the fact that a 5.5-year-old isn't out there.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, man. The buck just had a lot of potential to be a really fun deer to hunt next year, and that's one thing that I think we have a pretty decent perspective on, because neither of us really owns a big track where we manage and get to watch deer year in and year out. And sometimes, I've had that opportunity in the past some, but like, with One Eye Jack or whatever, got to watch him for several years, and I actually not in person, but just through trail cameras and all. And I've had that opportunity before, but we don't really have that opportunity now as much. And I think that we have a pretty good perspective on it overall. Our thoughts more like you said, like some 3 or 4 or 5-year-old deer, we find it dead. It's like, well, every age class there's less and less of those bucks. It's like, man, it just like I'm not sad necessarily because this deer in particular died. It's more that I'm just sad because my chances of seeing a 5-year-old next year are now cut in half or whatever. In a way, or what, not necessarily cut in half. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, but you found that, and we walked a ton.
And that's where the whole grunt call joke came from.
That's exactly right.
Last year when I was stalking that buck in that like specific area, probably 100 yards from there, I lost my Primo's buck roar grunt call, and
you were roaring too hard and then took off and caught wind and
that's
flew
what
off.
happened.
Yep.
He ran away from the roar. Like right next to this deer's skull, I found a chewed up piece of this grunt call. And I look around, there's like 3 pieces where the coyotes just mangled my grunt call, just chewed it up. It's like, what are y'all doing out here? Coyotes seem to be a problem out there.
We saw a lot of coyotes, man.
Yeah.
We probably saw almost as many as we did deer.
We did, and if we didn't see deer in bunches, we would have seen. There was more instances of coyote sightings than there were of deer sightings.
Yeah, like driving and stuff. Yeah. I mean, like you said, we busted some deer, and if we hadn't busted, like when you bust a coyote, or especially like a single, you might not even see that sucker ever.
Yeah.
But when a deer starts bounding away with a big flag, you're like, oh yeah, there's a deer.
Yeah. So we kind of that place we thought was going to be a bust for sheds completely, and then after we'd walked about 2 miles and I had the vehicle within view, probably 200 yards, finally find a chalk.
Yeah.
Right there by the truck, and it was decent little 8-point side, nothing crazy. But
we're not sure it wasn't an old shed from the buck that you found.
Yeah, it kind of has the same look.
Similar look,
Yeah.
But we're not trying to connect every single dot or anything for sure,
it's always something you think about, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing with sheds, like why they're cool, right?
Yeah.
Is to think about the deer that once held them.
Yeah. So that motif of building reverse history remained true all the way through yesterday, man.
Yeah.
With that buck you missed on public, the buck that we decided to kind of pass, and then also with Nameless, and finding that broke antler from 2016. What we guess would be 2016. So
yeah. What did we do after that? Just walk around, or drive around a whole lot and make phone calls?
Made phone calls, and then in the afternoon we walked quite a bit. And we scored 2 permissions in a way. One of them, they're really permissions to shed hunt, which is what we felt tactically would be the best way for us to eventually get permission to hunt. Unfortunately, there are hunters on both of these properties. We don't necessarily feel like we're completely blocked off from these properties, but that it may be a little bit tougher than we had hoped for. But we did score a really, really awesome connection with the landowner yesterday.
Yeah.
That has like several thousand acres.
It helps when you share last names.
Yeah,
You can make jokes like, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
I guess for related way down the way.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool, and it just took a lot of phone calling.
It did. We ended up walking a part of it yesterday, part of its property, small part, and we weren't super thrilled with the deer sign, and I just don't know. We were just kind of confused a little bit yesterday because a lot of the stuff that we were walking was cattle country and just kind of different. You don't exactly know where to walk to find deer sign, but you got some ideas, and when you walk it and you just see a few prints, you're just like, man, there's one rub on this whole property, or whatever.
Well, it reminded me some of like what we deal with in East Texas, where you're not looking at like concentrated deer areas of cover. Like it's a lot of kind of sparse cover and different paths for deer to take. If say you were like in some kind of shelter belt, like where there's a bunch of farmland or something, it might be different where the deer have to go this one direction. But that place over there, you're talking about just a bunch of scrub brush pretty much.
Right.
And there might be 15 deer moving through there every day, but if they all take a different path, it's not going to show up very much.
Right. I mean, it's difficult. And one thing I kind of, we were wanting to talk about was, with the trail camera is just like, we noticed, we just went through the last 500 pictures on that camera, or several hundred. I took them in groups of 500s. There's a mallard in the ditch, 2 mallards.
In the city.
So, one thing we noticed at the end of the pictures was that finally all the bucks had shed, from what we could tell.
Yeah.
Obviously you don't know which bucks didn't come by in the last week or whatever, but we didn't see any more shed bucks for the last several days, and so, or any more bucks still holding in the last several days. So
we did see some on the hoof though.
Yeah, we did.
We saw a couple of bucks that are half rack.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever saw a buck in person that had a full rack.
Right.
So, I mean, it was about wrapping up.
It was. And I think that overall, your shed rally, which is like a craze for those who don't do social media, it's like a social media kind of craze thing where everybody hashtags and you can, search up people who are doing shed hunting and stuff like that. It all happens like the first weekend in March usually, or the second weekend, depending on how early the first weekend is. So around like the 10th or a little bit earlier in March. And if we'd have gone shed hunting on shed rally weekend, there were still some bucks that were still holding.
Yeah.
That during that time.
Yeah.
And so I mean there was a deer that we just looked at that had both sides during shed rally weekend. He's a pretty decent 8-point. And and back home, let's see, what's the date? The 20th? Yeah, we're probably kind of at the same point now back home where like pretty much all of them have shed, but it's only happened within the last like 5 to 7 days, you know? So it was, I think it was, we decided to go the weekend after shed rally because just to make sure they're all gone, and I think that it was a good decision because one thing that you deal with, that you can deal with, especially in Texas, is that at this point, usually we're starting to green up, and we're kind of at that point now. This week is supposed to be like straight sunshine pretty much all week back home in Texas.
I think the night temperatures are the big thing too. We're going to have night temps that are in the low 50s, which means that ground temperature warms up quick. Yeah,
and so you're going to have not just green up, but like growing. You're going to have growth in Texas, and in the Midwest, it's a little. It's going to be colder, and like this morning we had frost on the ground.
So I think frost.
Yeah, so I think you can hold off on that stuff a little bit. And obviously guys are getting stuff eaten by some of the rodents. Their antlers are getting eaten and stuff. So I understand going out and doing it, but if you got one trip to go out there, there's definitely like a small window. But I think that shed rally weekend is definitely a great weekend to go. But if you wait a week or two, probably okay across most places.
And you're not going to bump the deer off your place that might still be holding that you really want to find the antlers off of.
So,
and it's just kind of the trend among hunters. Like, we all get so antsy about whatever the next season is going to be, right? Like, for instance, I'm, all over elk information right now, and that's a long way away, but I can't wait. And people on social media have been posting pictures of turkeys for 3 weeks, and it's a
Longer than
long
that, dude.
time till
Longer
turkey
than that.
season, right? And
Ugh.
they've been posting, like, oh, they're dropping early this year. I found a shed in January.
Oh, it
Like,
was the whole dropping early thing was such a huge fad.
Oh yeah.
And it just kind of, I don't know, if you are on social, man, you just got to be careful, because I think you can get to the point where you go stir crazy for no reason kind of thing,
Well, I always try to live, well, maybe not say it that way. Well, I'm going to say this. There is an expression that I tend to kind of agree with, that you're not the exception, you are the rule, right? Social media is a great place for exceptions to be seen. And if you see too many of them, because let's face it, there's like, I don't know, how many million people on Instagram, like 38 million or something like that, right? So
I would imagine
surely,
there's billions.
yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of folks who say, like, oh, look at the shed I found in January. And those are the exceptions. Where you are is probably the rule. Stick with what we know to be, biologically sound, where, yeah, they might drop a little bit earlier on a hard winter, whatever. But if you want to go out and find sheds, around middle of March is a good time to start.
Yeah. I mean, I think in most cases, if you're hunting around, if you're shed hunting around local to home, then go out in January and go out in February. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kind of makes people anxious, I feel like, is like you've got these guys who have decided to live a lifestyle where they live in Missouri or Iowa, and they live on their farm or close to their farm. And so deer, yes, we had deer dropping in January on camera. You know what I mean? We saw shed bucks walk in. And so, like, yeah, I would love to go find that buck's antler, because frankly, Kickers, a buck that I had an encounter with last year, and is one of the, I guess, late November, that series of hunts on our YouTube channel. You can see Kickers in the thumbnail. He's got some couple like 2 or 3 inch kickers off his G2s. That buck shed in January. I'm almost 100% sure, because you remember me saying, I'm pretty sure that's Kickers. It looks just like him. He just doesn't have horns. And he was coming in regular before he dropped. And so,
Antlers, Tyler, antlers.
Antlers, sorry for all you QDMA types out there. But anyway, I just think that it would be great if I had lived close enough to there to go looking for his antlers in January before some porcupine had a chance to gnaw on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just think what I'm trying to say here is, like, if you're going to make a trip to shed hunt somewhere out of state, don't feel the pressure in January and February like you're missing out too much.
And that's, like I said, it's just something that we do as hunters, right? Like, we want to know what the rutting action is on September 28th. Well, it's probably about a 0 at most places for whitetails, right? It's just, we get so antsy. We love it so much,
Right.
We just want to just wish it into fruition, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we just put in for New Mexico.
We did.
Just to change the subject a little bit.
Yeah.
KC did a lot of research. I did a little bit because I had been to a unit in the past, which I've told the story on the podcast at some point. But this unit, I got to learn a little bit, but it was back in the day when I didn't really know anything about elk hunting at all. And neither one of us didn't do anything about backcountry type stuff, which we did. We were backcountry, and on this hunt for a few days at a time. And so knowing what I know now about backcountry camping and just having a little more elk knowledge, along with just you being very knowledgeable about elk for a young cat that's never lived in the mountains, I think, we thought that maybe this would be a good place to go back to and use what little knowledge I gained there to go back and actually kill one, So
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it, man. And that's the good thing about these draw tags and having OTC states, to where we can put in for some stuff like this, and then if we don't draw, it's all right. We'll just go hunt Colorado, and use what knowledge we know from the past. Sorry, I'm getting distracted about all the wildlife and things going on in town. There was a guy fishing a drainage ditch right there, and I was just pondering that.
He was looking at some Canada geese.
He was. They're flying all over the place. Anyways, you can go and be able to hunt stuff that you know. And then also, if you draw a tag, you're going to go hunt an awesome unit that, even though you don't know it, you can rely on previous knowledge of elk hunting and just the fact that it's been managed well for quantities and quality of elk.
Yep. I'm pretty excited about elk hunting, man.
Yeah.
I've got the same.
Good.
I got a pretty good itch going on right now for what time of year it is. But I know when I get back with these warm days and these light winds, like I'm going to be ready to do some bass fishing. And I've already been there, but since early February, we've been having just miserable weather.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like lost my urge to go, I guess, for the last few weeks. But I'm getting back that way now. We got our shed hunt out of the way. We got a lot of valuable postseason type scouting on those places. We got to eliminate a lot of ground, I feel like, which is handy. And now it's just like I'm ready to tie some flies, do some bass fishing, try to put together some trout fishing trips in the mountains this summer. And
I feel like you're forgetting something vital.
spring turkey.
Not that, but yes.
Is that vital?
Crappie, dude.
Crappie?
What are you talking about, bass?
I mean, dude,
crappie. Crappie.
I love eating crappie more than any other fish in the world, pretty much. But like, I'm not a good crappie fisherman.
Are you not?
No.
I like crappie, man. I like crappie fishing. It's fun.
But
Jigging.
okay, so a good crappie fisherman to me can go out and catch 10 pretty much any day.
Yeah.
And
I don't
so
know if that's me either.
That's how I feel like. So like when I go out to catch crappie, when I go out to catch bass, if I catch 3 on fork, you know you got a chance of every chance. You know, every time you throw out, you got a chance of catching a giant, right?
Yeah.
And so like if I go out and catch 2 or 3 in the afternoon, that's a great afternoon for me. But if I go out and catch 3 crappie, I'm gonna be like, what do I do with these things? You know, like it's not enough to even eat hardly. You know,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
like it just feels like a day wasted. Like if I go out to catch crappie, I want to limit on
I think
them, you know what I mean?
maybe. So if that's what it takes to be a good crappie fisherman, maybe I'm a good crappie timer. So like I don't go a lot, but when I do go, we usually do pretty good.
Yeah.
Because there's like little things you can kind of key in on, little ecological signs.
Yeah.
That tell you when the crappie are going to be up shallow, and you can have a pretty good day. So I think that's another thing. It's kind of like the shit hunting thing, right? Don't go when it's not the right time.
Yeah. Well, even when I go and it's the right time, sometimes they're like, "Oh yeah, you should have been using the blue with the yellowtail." You know, I'm like, "Oh,
I don't believe that stuff, man."
Well, I don't either, but I do believe that I do believe in the intricacies of being able to catch fish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because I know for instance, last year we went and we were trying to catch crappie in like 2 foot of water, right? And we were having the hardest time. We knew exactly where they were. We had caught wind of the spot where they were spawning. And so I'm like in there and we've got jigs and we cannot catch them. And finally, I just was like, I figured out that it was maybe like move the boat 10 feet closer to the shore and you're in like 1.5 foot and take your jig and just go all the way to the bottom and lift it up, jig it a few times. If there's nothing, move it somewhere else. And we started slaying them, dude.
Yeah.
But like when I was like pitching and trying to work the jig in, it wasn't working. And so I was just like, when I learned that, I was like, you know what? I just want to go with somebody who's a crappie junkie every time and just let me, tell me how to catch them because I'm really not that interested in the fight or the sport of crappie.
They're not
I'm more
known
just
much for their fighting ability.
It's just like I want to put these in grease and eat them all.
There's something about so don't get me wrong, I love jigging for crappie, but minnows under corks is probably one of the most efficient ways to catch crappie.
Definitely.
And
but
there's
it's also
something
expensive.
Because of the minnows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can get that way.
Yeah, I mean it does, man.
Yeah.
It's expensive when you start thinking about it, and I'm just like, man, I just would rather jig them and not deal with like going and buying the minnows and then bringing them and keeping them alive, and then 10 of them died when you're getting to your spot, you know.
Yeah, that's true. But there's something cool about that cork going
oh yeah
under the water. It gets you pumped, man. And then you swing in like a big 17-incher. Oh, I love it, dude.
That doesn't happen often for me. 17-inchers are pretty
You're fishing
big.
the wrong end of the lake, dude.
Probably.
I think you are.
Yeah, I'm fishing the north end. I don't know where you're fishing.
I don't know where I'm fishing either. But
I agree with you. But have you ever fished a jig under a cork?
I have. It's pretty effective.
Yeah.
It's
slip cork.
You talking about the slide style?
Yeah.
With the spinning rod? I don't like that very much.
It is something to get used to for sure.
I've never had as good a luck. I do 14, 16-foot jigging pole.
Yeah.
And that's how I do it.
So we do
Because
but this is for fishing like deeper stuff too.
Yeah.
a lot
See,
of
I don't do
times.
that.
Yeah.
I like I said, I time my crappie fishing to where like they're going to be 3 foot or less.
Yeah.
And that's the only times I really go. Which I wish I could be one of those people who knows how to go out to the board arcs or the cedars or whatever in 12, 15 foot of water and catch a crappie. But I think it takes a lot of time to commit to do that. And
It does.
I don't have a boat for one thing, so
Yeah.
I'm usually reliant on either A, being in a kayak or canoe, or B, just being in my granddad's boat with him.
So are we gonna once we find them, are we just gonna literally take the week off of work and just stack?
Limit every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that
nice.
would be a smart thing to do.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Like
It does. It's food,
our
dude.
whole goal as humans is to live, eat, reproduce, and die, right? As far as like the human side of you, not as far as the spiritual side of
Right.
you. But so, in essence, if you're providing food, does it matter if I'm swinging a hammer to get money to pay for food, or is it better to just go out and just obtain the food
That's
directly?
what I tell my wife, and she's okay with it most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know about other guys. I mean,
Well, if the getting's good, then go get it. Right?
that's how I feel. I'm definitely all about it. But Amazon doesn't take crappie for exchange.
I know.
So I don't know.
Maybe they should.
They should. They definitely should if they were smart. Yeah, I don't know. I'm at that point though where like there's usually a week or two. Well, okay, so there's usually at some point in the spring when they're up shallow, there's usually like a day that you get on them, you're like, golly, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
So why not go like the next like 3 or 4 days until they move? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just think, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong mentality, but I just am like, I need to stack up my freezer so that I'm ready to go through the winter. Because I hadn't eaten a fresh fish that I caught in a minute. You know what I mean? Like, and we've been talking about running some jugs and stuff too this year. So
Yeah.
Are you going to still planning on doing that?
Yeah, May.
Yep. Just in May?
May's the time
Oh.
for those big flatheads.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got you.
Mid-May, that's the time to be out there and doing that.
So you're not trying to catch channels or anything like that on
I can
jugs?
go check anytime the creeks are running. That's when I can go catch plenty of channels to keep.
Right. I'm
you
just
know.
talking about jugging though.
Nah, not really.
Yeah.
So I mean,
They don't
I
taste as good when they're caught on a jug.
It's just the efficiency of it.
Yeah.
I can go with my granddad whenever the creeks are running and catch a limit, and he'll give me all of them because he goes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 50, 75 fish depending on who goes, So it's enough. As opposed to if you go through all the effort of doing your jugs right, which I don't have a bunch of jugs, so you got to, string them up, put hooks on them, put weights on them, find bait. Go out there in a boat, make sure your name and all that junk's on there.
Yeah.
And then watch them, and then still you've only got 15 jugs in the water, right? And that what's
Yeah.
legal, 15 per person. Or
Oh,
something
I
like
don't
that?
know that there's a limit on them.
I think there is,
Maybe.
but still, it's just I just think their rod and line is more efficient for channel cat,
Yeah.
particularly
So May for flatheads, huh?
made for flatheads.
Not June, because I saw a guy catch one in June
Now,
out there.
Yeah, on a rod and reel, I believe June is a good time because if I understand flatheads well, in May they're moving up to spawn, and they spawn a lot more like a bass does. Maybe not with a specific bed, but a female stays in a specific area, and a male fertilizes, and then he'll move out, and she stays with the eggs for a little while. I think that's right. So when you're catching flatheads in June, it's usually a male that moves out, and they're really hungry, and they go out and go into a really big feeding pattern around June. Because I think around June there's some pretty big shad floating around too, if I remember right.
There are.
So that's kind of what they do. But if you want those, 70 pounders, May in the creeks, or not in the creeks, but in the creek beds.
Gotcha.
It's time to be doing it.
That's exciting, dude.
I hope it's a big time, man. I haven't caught a big flathead in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited
I
about
never
it.
caught one, dude. Biggest flathead I've ever caught was on a jug. It was about 15 pounds, probably.
Yeah.
I caught an 8-pounder on a rod and reel one time.
I bowfished a 44-pounder.
Back when they had
That
the season.
1 year it was legal.
Why did they get rid of that?
I think because it was too effective, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
But for that 1 year, it was really nice because it was a great way to obtain some nourishment.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, dude, spring's looking good. And like you were saying, we are actually going to go turkey hunting this year.
Yep.
on a permission property that's supposed to be kind of a slam dunk. Because to be honest, guys, we like to keep it public and all that stuff, but sometimes keeping it public means walk your booty off and not see anything.
Yeah.
So we're going to go for some
Texas.
efficiency on turkeys.
Yeah, and I have the similar mentality. Like I love turkey hunting. Don't get me wrong, and I've shot some, but I have a similar mentality about them where like I'm not too serious about them.
Yeah.
And so and I like to eat turkey, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Hey, for real, I'll jump shoot a turkey. I don't even care.
oh, I'm the same way.
You know?
I mean, don't let anybody from the WTF
I
listen
know,
to this thing.
dude. They'll be like, well, you got to call them into the left. If you call them into the right, you got to let them go. You know, but
With a wing bone from a turkey that you found dead first, and then yeah, I mean it's good. I totally respect the guys that take it seriously. I'm just not really quite as serious about it as some, and
I guess it's just a product of where we were raised.
Yeah.
I mean, when we didn't have turkeys and weren't able to build that culture, then
Yeah.
of course we don't have the same appreciation for it. It's just like how I don't have a great appreciation for like steamed clams, right? Because I'm not from the Northeast or wherever
Right.
they do that. But,
Yeah.
Or boiled peanuts or whatever, you know. But man, I really like some poke salad, you know, and it's just kind of just the way it goes when you're just raised in different places.
right, yeah. So what's next on the whitetail side of things for us?
Man, that's something I was thinking about driving.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's next on whitetail. Well, I do know that we still actually have some cameras out on Texas Public.
Oh yeah, we do
We
need
got
to
to
go
get
those.
those. And then, but besides that, man, you and I were talking before we got on the air. I think we need to bear down and really work on some permission stuff out of state this summer.
Yeah. I also want to work on some permission stuff in state because you've got a new property and you're going to be having a lot of focus on that. But I'm still looking for somewhere that I can get into like a legal buck in Texas, close to home, you know.
Yeah.
And I've got to, I was thinking about that earlier. I've got to crack down on that. And with the Iowa tag, you know, I'd like to have some permission there, but it's kind of like
Knock on wood.
yeah, I got to get it first. But you know, getting permission up there is probably like third tier for me
Yeah.
as far as getting permissions go in and out of state. So it's kind of what we're looking at. I don't know that we're going to go quite as hard in the summertime on public this year.
We say that now. But it's that same thing like we talked about earlier in the podcast. Like you just get this itch and you want to make it happen so bad.
Yeah.
But if we can just show some maturity and like use those efforts towards something that is going to help us actually in the fall more. Like say it's working more as opposed to like going out and sweating your tail off, just walking around aimlessly, getting ticked up and ticked off. Maybe that's what we need to do, right? We need to figure out what is the most efficient and effective ways. Maybe it's traveling out of state as opposed to taking, you talked about this, as opposed to taking 5 one-day trips in-state to different public parcels. Maybe we take 1 2-day trip out of state and really bear down on something that's going to make a big difference for us, right?
And I feel like that, like logically that makes sense, but I feel like that that is not going to be the trade-off that we work out. Like we're going to get into that work grind in the summer and you're just going to be like, I just can't make it. Just can't get out of state, you know?
Yeah.
Even if we didn't go 5 less times than we would have normally. Because it's just going to be one of those things that's like hard to quantify what you're giving and taking there. So I don't know. It does work in theory, but I'm not sure that I don't know. I just don't know. I just know that like a lot of the summertime scouting we've done locally has not done a whole lot for us, it feels like.
Nope.
We kind of talked about that at the end of the year last year.
And yeah, because you know, just to be honest with everyone here, you and I and anybody else in the truck, that's a joke, there's nobody else in the truck. But the first place that we ever really scouted together on Texas public land is still the best place.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, we found some stuff, but it hasn't paid off a ton, especially summertime stuff,
Well,
you know?
I mean, dude, and we did so much work last summer in finding some deer and getting them on camera and velvet and, you know, and thinking, oh man, we got several spots this year now. Like, we're good to go. We know we got several spots that we know mature deer are using and kind of how they're using it. And dude, we didn't, you know, as soon as late October comes and we start going into some of these spots, there's people everywhere. And all of a sudden, like, we've been hunting these spots for 2 or 3 years that haven't had anybody in them. or even like we hung a camera there early last summer and we started finding good velvet bucks, and there was no human sign in there at all. Even last fall when we looked or whatever, and there would be a million people there this year, and I don't know. It almost felt like there was just more pressure than there has been out there any other years, and I don't know if that's just because it happened to be in our spots that we've been finding, or if it actually is a little bit more pressure just because of how popular public land hunting and talking about it has gotten, So.
Well, here's the deal: if public land hunting continues to gain popularity in our state and other states, states need to look at where their income is coming from for license sales, and maybe expanding those opportunities, whether that's through walk-in access or adding to WMAs or converting things from state parks to WMAs or what have you. Whatever.
Well, we've got
it might
a ton of core land that's not being used right now for hunting. I mean, why?
But that's federal land, so that's a different department. That's a different people to talk to, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk to them. But
they let us on some of it, and then some of it they don't. I don't understand why.
No, I don't know.
It's just, I'm with you though. Like, if there's an emphasis there, and there are a lot of people using it, let's expand it somehow.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we just got a fully funded farm bill, right? A fully funded LWCF, which is the same thing as a sport. What's it? Wild game and sport fish. What do they always say on the PBS show on the Texas Parks and Wildlife? Anyways, that's the Pittman Robertson Dingle Johnson stuff. That's that funds, and it gets confusing. I had to look this up the other day. The Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Fund. That's what it is. That's Dingle Johnson and Pittman Robertson. Okay, just in case you were confused on that, because I didn't know they were the same thing, but I've been seeing that my whole life because of the Texas Parks and Wildlife show. Anyways, that's kind of a tangent. Sorry.
It's all right.
But like we need to look at expanding that stuff and within reason and where it makes sense, right? Like we don't need more 400-acre pastures to dove hunt for 2 weeks out of the year. Right. Now, don't get me wrong. Like maybe we do need more of those, but that's not all we need because that doesn't satisfy the needs of all hunters.
No, it's weird to me. We've talked about it before, maybe not on the podcast, but there's a huge dove hunt culture here in Texas.
Yeah.
But after opening weekend, there's hardly anybody that hunts dove. Mm-hmm. And so, like, are these leases that are small game and dove only? Are they even worth the money that is being paid towards that lease from the department?
Yeah.
We don't. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see how they justify that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I do know that we've met plenty of guys out on Texas public land hunting deer that are like, I've been hunting here all season. Every weekend I hunt both days, and I haven't killed a deer here, but they still are pretty. The culture around deer hunting is very serious, and they're serious about it, and therefore they're going to spend a lot of time and effort out there, and hopefully they don't give up if they keep not killing deer. What I mean? So I'm with you on that. But anyway. We're excited about spring. We are excited about some of the sheds that we found. Mm-hmm. We'll put together a video of the shed hunting trip. It's probably just going to be real random because we didn't focus on like telling a story or anything. But there are some pretty cool, like you saw, and if you listen to this podcast, there's some pretty cool like reverse history that we have with some of these deer, and we can kind of explain that, show that with some other clips, and hopefully you guys will see what we're talking about a little better if you tune into that kind of thing.
There will be definitely some cool stuff, man. Those deadheads are neat.
Yeah, they are. They're pretty sizable, man.
Yeah.
So those were good finds. Also, don't forget there is a contest going on right now, and we should probably find a date to wrap this thing up on. And I don't think it'll be too long from now, maybe on the next podcast or two. But On Fire is a film that we released. And it's not going to be like the shed hunt at all. If you watch it, it's going to be an actual story that has some meaning to it. It's a really awesome film and I say that just because of the story that didn't have anything to do with me at all. It's a great story. Go watch the film. It's a film on our channel called On Fire. It's about duck hunting and a little bit more. And leave a comment. Tell us what you like. And you're in the running for an OnX premium membership for a whole year.
Woo! It's a good prize.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go to YouTube and comment on the video, Tell us what you liked. And I think we talked about maybe sharing the post on Facebook as maybe like you might have a chance to
bonus points squared.
Exactly. Yes. So anyway, that's about all. I hope you guys are getting out in it and warming up a little bit, because it's been a cold one this winter, man. We're definitely looking forward to some green grass and some sunny skies. So anyway, Casey, is there anything else, man?
No, man, I better get off of here. This state troopers give me the stink eye for having a headset on and driving. So,
all right. Well, God bless you guys, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.